You know, for over 70 years, one of Australia's most baffling cases has just haunted investigators and, let's be honest, armchair detectives like us. It's a story that starts on a quiet beach and spirals into this wild puzzle of secret codes, erased identities, and a name that took a lifetime to uncover. So let's dive into the enduring riddle of the Somerton Man. It's this line from the original police reports that just captures the whole eerie vibe of the scene, doesn't it? There were no signs of a fight, no struggle. It was all just quiet. The whole thing felt staged, almost peaceful, which ironically is what made it so incredibly unsettling right from the very beginning. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're going back in time to post-war Australia. It's the morning of December 1st, 1948, on this stretch of sand called Somerton Beach in Adelaide. This is the exact time and place where what seemed like a simple discovery would become a national obsession. Now, this wasn't just a body that washed ashore. No, he was positioned with this almost deliberate neatness. He was propped up against the seawall, legs outstretched, with an unlit cigarette just resting on his collar, like he'd just nodded off. Every little detail was just peculiar. It gave you this immediate sense that something was very, very wrong. So, right from the get-go, investigators hit a total brick wall. The three most basic questions you ask in any death investigation, who was he, how did he die, and why was he here, were just impossible to answer. They had a perfectly preserved body with absolutely no past. And as the police started digging into this, they quickly realized this wasn't just a case of some unidentified person. Oh no. The clues they were finding suggested that this man's identity hadn't just been lost. It had been systematically and very purposefully erased. I mean, just think about the contradiction here for a second. He's wearing a suit, a tie, and these perfectly polished shoes, but every single label on his clothing had been carefully snipped off. He had everyday things in his pockets, like gum and a train ticket, but no wallet, no cash, no ID. This was a clear, deliberate effort to leave behind a body without a name, a ghost. And if that wasn't weird enough, a suitcase turns up at the local train station that's believed to be his. And guess what? It had all of its identifying tags removed too, just like the clothes on his body. Someone went to incredible lengths to make this man disappear. Right when it seemed like this case was going absolutely nowhere, a complete dead end, investigators found something. It was this tiny, almost insignificant little detail that would become the most famous clue in Australian history, turning the entire case on its head. Hidden deep inside a fob pocket, one that was actually sewn into the lining of the man's trousers, police found a tightly rolled up scrap of paper, and on it were two printed words, Tamám Shud. This was the first real clue, but honestly, it felt way more like a riddle than an answer. So what does Tamám Shud even mean? Well, it turns out it's Persian, and it's the final phrase from a famous collection of poems called the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. The meaning? It is ended, or it is finished. So was this a suicide note? A final message? The sort of philosophical weight of these words just made the whole thing even more intriguing. And get this. This wasn't just any piece of paper. After police put out a public appeal, a man came forward. He said he'd found a rare copy of that exact poetry book tossed into the back of his car, right around the time the body was discovered. And in the back of that book, the final page, the one with the words Tamám Shud, was torn out. They'd found the source. But wait, it gets even weirder. The book itself held more secrets. Inside the back cover, investigators found two bizarre clues lightly penciled in. One was a phone number, which led them to a local nurse who swore she knew nothing about the man. And the other was a block of what looked like completely random letters. A code. And this code? I mean, just look at it. For over 70 years, the world's best cryptographers, everyone from military intelligence experts to amateur sleuths online, have thrown everything they've got at this. And to this day, no one has definitively cracked it. It remains a complete and total enigma. So, you've got this mysterious death, a totally erased identity, and an unbreakable code. One theory just started to dominate all the others. Remember, this was the height of the Cold War, and all these strange pieces started to point in a very specific and very dangerous direction: espionage. I mean, you have to ask, right? Was this guy a secret agent, silenced by his enemies before he could complete his mission? Was the code some kind of message that was never received? This dramatic theory just captured the public's imagination and really defined the Somerton Man's legacy for generations. And then there's the medical evidence, which honestly just makes everything even more confusing. There were zero signs of violence, and bafflingly, no traces of any known poison were found in his system. And yet, the coroner concluded that poisoning, probably from something super fast-acting and undetectable, was the most likely cause of death. He was a perfectly healthy man whose body had simply stopped working. So, for more than 70 years, the case just went cold. The files gathered dust, and the Somerton Man remained this nameless figure in a lonely grave. But then, just when you think it's all over, modern science offered a brand new key to this very old lock. I mean, just look at this timeline. From the discovery way back in 1948, the case went cold for decades and decades. Then, in 2022, a stunning breakthrough happened. It took nearly 3/4 of a century for the first real answer to finally emerge. So how'd they do it? Well, it's pretty incredible, actually. Researchers managed to extract DNA from hairs that were trapped in the plaster death mask they made of him back in 1949. Using that DNA, they started the painstaking process of forensic genealogy, building this huge family tree by matching his DNA to distant relatives in public databases. Until, finally, they closed in on a single name. And there it is. After 74 years, a name. Not a spy, not some foreign agent, but Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and an instrument maker from Melbourne. A seemingly ordinary guy, born in 1905, the ghost finally had a name. But here's the twist. And this is the crazy part. While giving him a name is this monumental breakthrough, it hasn't solved the case. Not at all. In fact, you could argue it only makes the mystery deeper. We now know who he was, but we still have absolutely no idea why any of this happened. Think of it like this. We've finally filled in one piece of this puzzle, his identity. But look at everything that's still missing. His motive for being in Adelaide? Unknown. That code? Still uncracked. And the official cause of his death? Still totally uncertain. The core of the riddle is still completely intact. So we're left with the same huge, nagging questions that stumped the police back in 1948. Why did Charles Webb, an engineer from Melbourne, travel all the way to Adelaide? Who was he meeting? What secrets does that code hold? And what really happened in his final hours on that beach? And that's really what makes this case so haunting, isn't it? It just shows us how a seemingly normal life can contain these deep, dark secrets, and how a person can simply walk out of their world and into a mystery so profound it lasts for generations. The story of Charles Webb proves that sometimes finding a name is only the beginning of the search for the truth.